Okay, so here we are back at Ushant. The English, with all their trickery and everything, have gotten themselves with a lot of ships out of command. Now, without a Hawke or a Nelson in command, and Kepler certainly is not one of these, they have some serious issues here. And I'm hoping the system makes the English pay for this. That'll make the battles a little bit more interesting because you will have to keep your formations together. You don't have to worry about it if you got Hawke or Nelson. First of all, they have humongous command radiuses, so they can command a big clump of ships. But secondly, their modifier, their command modifier, +4, +5, makes it so that they have better than a 50% chance of their ships operating even without being in command. But here I think the Brits are going to pay a big price for it. With only an audacity of 1 and Kepler as a 2, that means they only have a 40% chance of their ships being in command. I guess we roll for initiative and see what happens. The French have their own little out-of-command squadron. I ran out of command markers, so I'm using these hull damage markers until I resolve the die rolls. That's kind of an annoying place for them to be out of command, right in their vanguard of this column. But with the English turning away, it's probably not such a big deal. I didn't slow down enough to let the rest of the command catch up. I really need to do that. I'm using so few of the games counters, and my cord is not working well here. I decided to use these to mark out of command, but able to act like they're in command. That's an important status, and without that status marked, I can't really tell what I moved and what I didn't. And it's very easy to see that these ships are out of command at this moment. And it may be easy after I move, say, this squadron, to still see they're out of command. But what's not clear is did I move one of them or not. So what I do is I may rotate these counters as I do with the out of command counters to help me indicate that a ship's moved or not. This is going to help a lot. This was one of the big negatives I had, and I didn't want to add more counters to those huge piles. With the individual record keeping on the sheets, which is working okay so far, I have the room to put an extra counter. There just aren't these huge stacks. This is the biggest I have, and that's barely anything at all. That I had on, in the earlier battles, I had just so many. Uh-oh. That shouldn't be there. What you can notice is that the English actually recovered a good number of their units. These guys, this guy looks like he's actually in command. How about that? Didn't even notice it. The French out of command ships, not so good, but I'm not counting on being able to engage this turn. I really have to get that command into place anyhow. Okay, the French punted, and the English chose to move one of their semi out of command ships, right? So the French can punt again if they want. That ship sailed across the bow of the Porfier here, and then managed to line up another shot from its port broadsides. Pretty much took it out of commission, did something like 17 hits total on it with all the firepower. This first fire from the Valiant, it's a bigger ship. That thing's on fire. It's ready to sink. It's just a real problem in a lot of ways. The main thing was I didn't want to move this first column up because, again, there's a slight advantage to the defensive fire. So delaying on that gives some advantages. But the French can punt again. Unfortunately, what they're seeing is each of these English out-of-command ships is going to cause trouble every time I punt. I'm not going to be allowed to get that slight advantage without taking some heavy fire, perhaps on my main flagship, or on my flagship here. This is the Vanguard flagship, only not my main one. So I think the French are going to move this van forward just because the exchanges are much more even than what I'm getting from these individual ships, all of which are able to attack. These guys are not able to attack because they're out of command, actually out of command. So the French half of that pass-through is complete. They've pushed through. Most of the fires occurred. It's hard to tell what really happened. A lot of fire exchanged. Both sides taking advantage of the wind for the type of fire they take. Basically, the way I'm looking at it is, with the amount of room and the maneuvering and attempting to keep in columns, shooting those rigging isn't that bad a deal. Rigging's a bad deal when you start getting tied down into the chaos. But especially, you know, the French are going to take their rigging shots where they can, but the English are actually taking them too, which feels a little funny to me, but I want to kind of cripple part of the French fleet however best I can do it. And you can actually get things like fires and stuff better by firing at rigging. If you've got the bonus on the thing, you might as well do the damage, I figure. In some cases, maybe I'd be better off just taking that even shot on the hull instead of a +1 shot on rigging. I don't know. But anyway, rigging shows up on the map, the hull hits down. You can see we got, this is the thing on fire, another one on fire here. The French slipped through here. But what we're doing is we're getting away from these ships, which is kind of cool because they were a real threat. Well, not those, but these guys were a real threat to the rear, and this one too. Of course, the problem is we're going to have to face another line, another gauntlet to run through. Oh well, maybe the reserve French fleets will be able to do something kind of impressive as they come in. Okay, after all movement, but I haven't gotten to the cleanup yet, you can see the French are pushing forward with both their flanking squadrons. The Brits have pushed through this, a little bit more fire here, which did some serious damage to these guys. Gas, they couldn't return fire. English ships sliding down to try to get into with the rest of the pack. There's kind of this interesting situation where the English ships that came across this way are all kind of spread about. I don't know if I'm going to have a good command radius on any of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, the problem is I can either command these ships next time, or I can command a 5 hex radius. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which won't include that one. I don't know if I moved this. I don't think I did. I don't know. I'm assuming I did. And yes, everything I try, it's just not mechanically working for me to try to mark things as moved. No way I can do it on the sheet, which is what I had hoped to do. And just because movement is something separate. And with counters, well, at the end I kind of moved everything quickly, and I don't remember if that moved or not. Oh well. These guys started tacking back to face this column now that it's moving into place against them. One of them got caught in irons. The rest are just beating there. We've got these guys still with full sail up just because there's not much threat that the French can get to them. If they back sails a couple of times, there's just no chance at all. Anyway, I'll do the cleanup. We've got a few vulnerable ships, a few ships on fire. Let's see where that all ends up. Okay, so after cleanup, I rolled no wind change this time, but we got a bunch of the fires were put out. I don't think anything's on fire anymore. I think everything succeeded. The French took some rigging damage from it. The 2 French ships that were on fire both struck colors, though, which means they're essentially out of the battle, except as potential prizes. This one is still potentially able to sink, so I'm going to pretty much ignore it. On the English side, well, they had a vulnerable ship, and the French had another vulnerable ship that both sunk. So we're beginning to clear some of the boats out of the way, and that always helps a little bit. I wanted to mention a removed map D. It's pretty obvious the battle's heading this way and in the center at best. I don't think we're going to see much going on down here. If we do, it's no big deal. I can just shift the map around as I like, kind of like in an SFB game. I can extend it with additional maps in whatever direction I like, or if need be, I can just roll the map. Those are 2 options for the game, as long as I don't exceed the size of the original map. I don't feel like I'm doing anything weird here. The one thing that's a potential problem is probably width-wise, someone could head off this way, ships heading in that direction, one or the other could be forced to disengage by that. Such as. Good news for the French. I tried to keep, I thought I had everything in good formation, everything ordered in the right direction. Look at all these out of command. Why? Guess who fell out of formation? The commander. Just him. He's got one ship under his command with very little movement ability. I've got to try to fix that. That's going to be kind of tough. These guys are going to have to do a lot of backing sails and stuff. Luckily for me, the English are not prepared to engage in battle. They have their full sails up. So I might be able to manage it. For the English side, I got to be careful here too. I've got one I missed. They've got a number of ships out of command as well. Now I can actually reach through here. I'm not sure if I can trace through my own ship. I gotta look that up. I may have this one out of command. But all this is in command. These guys are in command under whoever this dude is. Harland. But he can't get his rear ships. He can't get some of these further ones because I didn't have, I'm not facing the same direction as these. That's really the problem here. Otherwise, I would be able to get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, he's in command. Cool. The French, on the other hand, have that formation largely in command. Those out-of-command ships in the back don't hurt. And this formation is entirely in command. I don't know how it's going to all work out, but definitely was a big hurt for the French to lose their main squadron's command. They might have had an opportunity to maybe get some kind of jump on these British ships here. They're going to have a harder time doing that now. Luckily for them, though, they've passed through, for the most part, this one squadron. Got a couple of ships that might get shots off, but those ships are already still adjacent, so it's not too big a deal there. And I don't know. It looks like it's going to be a bit of a tangled mess, though. Well, piecing things together was getting too difficult for keeping the narrative in hand. This is where we ended up. The French sliding up, the English meeting them, but some of these sliding into place to cut into the front of that. We've got that rear squadron coming up onto the French squadron. They've they've managed to set themselves up so they'll be in command again. There's one group sliding here, the English main squadron falling back, or actually catching up here, just enough that there's going to be a definite collision there. Is the French fleet going to just slice through it or what? Here's the problem. My goal with the French was to try to keep a distance, but I'm having a hard time doing that. I'm ending up trading shots at close range. It's really tough to maneuver these formations and avoid having the opponent close with you if they want to. I'm certainly finding that difficult. I'm not sure that's unreasonable. I'm just finding it to be a hard job. It's cleanup time for this turn, and then we'll be going into 31. Well, we got more ships went down. The Stirling Castle, which sort of got itself stuck in a stupid place. And did the French lose another one? Yeah, they lost the Fier, which is a danger. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Yay, I'm still going to be in command. That was the one holding me together in command, I thought. But this thing, which is almost dismasted, we've got a dismasted English ship. These are problems, but, it's just sort of the nature of the wreckage that you leave behind in the wake of a battle like this, I guess. All right, onward. And yes, it's just too hard to come up with the narrative as I'm going. And the problem is, it is still difficult. If I walk away from the game, I can't remember what I've moved and what I haven't. Using counters just isn't handling that. It's not like, if you're playing an I go, you go game like Terrible Swift Sword, you can sort of mark your way across the map as to how far you go by putting your tweezers or a pencil or whatever down to indicate, yeah, I've moved these. I spent 20 minutes moving pieces. I'm going to go take a break for a couple hours and come back. You can't do that with this. Moving a formation takes a significant amount of time, effort, back pain, whatever. And then I want to go away, but then I can't remember where I am because of the kind of flexible nature of the movement without some kind of chit to indicate that. And I should just pull some move chits out of some game or something, because I'm not remembering by using the out of command markers. I'm not remembering by using the anchors. But when I sat here and played it straight up, it wasn't that bad, except for it was just too painful to do. Maybe with a group of people, like 3 players per side or something, it wouldn't be as bad, because I could sit back and relax and have a smoke while other people are taking their turn, their command activations. Okay, well, this is the first turn where the game could be just over now. The French could break. They have less undamaged ships than the English do, not by a factor of 2, but essentially they have a -1 on the die roll. Hey, the English cannot break because they have the audacity rating. So they have a +1 to the die roll. They cannot possibly break. But the French have a -1, which means they have a 20% chance of just breaking at this point. Oh, look, they did. Game over. I was getting close to the point where, and the English just want a decisive victory, because the French scatter. We don't handle any kind of pursuit or anything like that. I was gonna keep playing, but there was a question in my mind of, do I really, really want to? And will I continue this out until the die roll finally cracks it? Or will I give up? Because it's beginning to descend into the chaos, which I think every game will. And it's beginning to hurt my back and a number of other factors. And I wanted to make sure I have something that I can play over the weekend. And no, I didn't just keep re-rolling and cutting the tape until I finally got one. That's a clever idea. I wish I had thought of it. No, in a sense, I kind of want it to play out more of this, because I don't feel like I learned much about this battle. The French fleet barely engaged, and now they're gone. I don't like the braking mechanism, and it's too random. This doesn't feel like I got a chance to engage. Now, it is true that sometimes a fleet would break pretty quickly. So I don't know if it's too random for the historicity. It's too random for the enjoyment of play. All that time, we barely engaged, a couple of ships fell. And the French are more vulnerable to it because they have the modifier in favor of shooting out masts. This does not count as an undamaged ship, or as a damaged ship. Alright, well, I'm going to load this up, and I guess I'll throw a review. I'm not sure whether or not I'm coming back to this in the near future. I'm going to leave it available to play, but I want to get my review out, because I also have no real desire to play another one. Alright, up we go. In the midst of cleanup and bullshit, I'm not stopping at this point. I'm stopping this game, no question. And I think that's actually an important factor in this game system. But I'm not going to do my review yet. I don't feel like I'm comfortable enough. I need to play more scenarios of it to see how much it plays out like this when I'm playing with the full real rules. Because here's what happened in this game. I played out exactly what I wanted to. The ships moved forward. I was commanding the formations. I was getting into position for battle. The battle was engaged, and very shortly afterwards, the battle was over. And if that's the case, first of all, the French do not want to ever fire at rigging because they will lose every battle. They'd rather fire at a disadvantage. But if that's the case, the game is very different from what I've experienced in the last two scenarios. The last two scenarios, I didn't bother with this break roll until late in the second one. And the games became these tangled messes of ship-to-ship combat, fights, in one case to the end, with a time limit. Well, this one played out very, very differently and very much closer to the kind of fleet action that I was looking for. Why? Because it didn't get the opportunity to degenerate into the fleet battle and into these individual ship battles and into this mess of chaos. I need to see more. So I'm going to suffer through one more, but I'm not going to do that right away. I am going to do something special. I don't know what, but something different for the weekend.